Hey guys, good morning and welcome to another episode of Motorcyclist MC Commute. You guys know the deal this morning. We're going to be riding to the motorcyclist office in Southern California on Yamaha's 2020 YZF-R1M. So let's throw the helmet on and go for a ride.
Well guys, here she is, Yamaha's 2020 YZF-R1M. This year represents the 22nd year of Yamaha crafting its fine leader class superbike. Now, Yamaha originally unveiled this YZF-R1 for the 1998 model year. This motorcycle was all about agility and big power. Fast forward 22 years and we have the 2020 YZF-R1M. This is Yamaha's up-spec premium leader class superbike. It differs from the standard YZF-R1 in its use of Öhlins electronically adjustable semi-active suspension, Öhlins gas-charged fork, Öhlins gas-charged shock. It also comes with full carbon fiber bodywork, including a carbon fiber tail. It also has Yamaha's GPS data acquisition system. You can see the GPS on top of the tail cowl. And it also has a wider and taller Bridgestone Battlax RS11 tire. The standard R1 comes with a 190 series back tire. This thing has a 200 series back tire, which lifts the seat height up just a little bit. What I really like about this YZF-R1M is the styling. When Yamaha came out with this bike in 2015, they obviously wanted to make it look like the YZR-M1 MotoGP bike, and this bike does. It literally looks like a MotoGP bike. I like how for 2020 Yamaha sharpened up its face. Its face looks a little bit more like the YZF-R6. It's sleeker. The LED position lights are a little bit more nestled in there. They look better. Aluminum air intake. This piece used to be plastic. Now it's made of alloy. These mirrors are also recessed into the fairing, where before they were on top of the fairing. So nice, very minor aesthetic changes on this motorcycle, but it looks more modern. It looks sharp. This is a very, very, very good looking motorcycle. But enough talking about it. Let's swing a leg over it and see what it's like to ride. All right, guys, here we go. Mechanical key, traditional mechanical key. Thank you, Yamaha. We don't like that keyless entry stuff. Mechanical keys are always better. There she is, guys. We've enabled dark mode. Dark mode is enabled on the display. You can also have it where it's a white background with black numbers. That's the standard configuration, but just like our iOS operating system on our iPhone, we like dark mode. Now, we've taken the time to set up this motorcycle the way we want. This bike has a tremendous amount of settings here, and you can access them all through the menu navigation wheel right here. We've got power mode in 2. 1 is the most aggressive power setting. 2 softens the initial hit a little bit. It still makes peak power as it does in 3, power mode 3, but the throttle response is a little smoother. Traction control, we have that in 3. You have a variety of options, 1 through 10. Right now, we'll put it in 5, see what it feels like in 5. How about that? Let's go back here. Sometimes it takes a second for this thing to work. There we go. Let's hold it. There, we got it in 4. How about that? Slide control is in 1. Launch control off, we don't need that. Quick shift pattern is in 1. Down is on. Lift control 2. 2 is the medium setting, so it pulls back the wheelies a little bit more than level 1. Conversely, it lets you wheelie a little bit more than level 3. Engine brake. This is a new feature for 2020. Now, 2015 through 2019 YZF-R1s had fixed engine brake in level 1. Level 1 is the setting that the Yamaha used to have. Now, level 2 allows the motorcycle to freewheel a little bit more into corners. Level 3 lets it freewheel even more. But we're going to leave it on 2. We've used it a lot on the track, on the street, and level 2 overall is our favorite. Brake controls also new. Now, 2015 through 2019 YZF-R1s they didn't have cornering ABS per se. Yamaha's introduced cornering IMU ABS in setting 2. If you revert to setting 1, that is what the ABS calibration used to be on the 2015 through 2019 YZF-R1. There is no cornering functionality, but with 2 there is. ERS, this is Öhlins Smart EC 2.0 electronically adjustable suspension. We have it in road mode. We can also tweak all the settings here and make adjustments as needed. This setup is really slick. My only really gripe with it is the display is a little bit small. Now, this is the same size display Yamaha was using when it came out with the R1 in 2015. So back then, this display was bigger, or actually the same size as of an iPhone 5, which we were using back then. So now it's a little bit small compared to the latest generations of iPhones. The scroll wheel you use here to make adjustments too, it works well, but there's a little bit of fumbling going on, and the tactile feel could be better as well. All right, ergonomically, guys, obviously this is a sport motorcycle, a high-performance Japanese leader class sport bike. So the ergonomics on it are going to be fairly demanding. Clip-ons are low and wide, seats tall, rear sets are very high mounted. Now, when Yamaha came out with this bike in 2015, it was clear they were going with a more track focused machine. The 2009 through 2014 YZF-R1 was much more road based. I actually like that bike a lot for riding on the street, just because it was big, heavy, had a big wide fairing, really comfortable street bike. It also threw out a lot of engine heat, so when you were riding during the winter months, you'd always be warm. So fast forward to today, and Yamaha has now fitted a more aggressive track orientated bike. Now you see that blue band right here, that's actually the brake pressure sensor. So when I squeeze the front brake, the brake pressure sensor knows how much input I'm putting on and then lights up the dash. And the brake pressure sensor is used for the ABS circuit. The previous Yamaha YZF-R1 2015 through 2019 had linked brakes, so it would actually give a little bit of rear brake when you would use the front brake in certain situations. Yamaha's actually removed that feature, so now the front brakes and the rear brake are operated fully independently of each other. ABS is always on. You cannot manually disable ABS. You're not going to be able to do any endos or any stunting on the street. And away we go, guys. Whoa. This YZF-R1M is equipped with Yamaha's electronic quick shifter, so we can go up and down through the 6-speed gearbox without using the clutch, without letting off the throttle. It's a very, very slick setup. Yamaha introduced that technology on its 2018 YZF-R1, I believe. Now this engine, Yamaha really raised the bar in 2009 when it released its first cross-plane crankshaft equipped R1 sport bike. Now, the cross-plane crankshaft was actually engineered and developed for MotoGP competition. And what it does is it spaces out the engine firing order. And what it does that to help elevate traction. So it boosts rear tire traction. It makes the power pulses a little bit less tough on the tire, so the tire doesn't wear out quite as fast in theory. This allows a Yamaha YZF-R1 rider to open the throttle a little bit earlier and get on the throttle harder in theory without having to worry about losing traction or wearing out that tire prematurely. It also affords a very pleasing engine sound and character. There's a lot of companies out there that make inline 4 motorcycles, but no inline 4 sounds like this cross-plane equipped YZF-R1. It's just it's such a fun, playful engine. It has the torque and power pulses of a V-twin at lower RPM, but then you rev it up and it's got the high RPM wail of a traditional inline 4. So Yamaha's definitely carved out its own niche in the powertrain department. So kudos to Yamaha for doing something different and really refining the engine character. I love the growl of this engine. I love how playful it is. I love how it has just the right amount of engine vibration. Yamaha is known for its exquisite line of musical instruments, and this engine literally feels like it's been tuned like a piano. It has just the right amount of vibration through the controls that make riding a motorcycle so fun. Ooh, a corner. Corners. Yes. Love the way this bike handles. 450 pounds with a 4.5 gallon load of fuel. This bike is no featherweight. In fact, it's 7 pounds heavier than the 2019 YZF-R1M. 7 pounds heavier. That must be due to the different Öhlins suspension. At a standstill, this bike is definitely a little bit heavy. You feel its weight, but when it's in motion, it feels much more agile. You have to remember, this bike's outfitted with cast magnesium rims. Yamaha fitted cast magnesium rims on its 2015 YZF-R1, and they carry over, and these rims are very, very light. I remember lifting them up at the Worldwide Press introduction in Australia 5 years ago, and they are exceptionally light wheels. And that's one of the reasons how Yamaha gets that nimble feel when in motion. And away we go, guys. Right through the gearbox. Listen to that thing scream. Sorry, we're speeding, guys. It's just, this bike is so fun to ride, and the engine makes such nice sounds that it's hard to not hold her wide. ABS ensures we can brake as hard as we want without any fear of front tire instability. Lift control keeps the front end toward the ground. You can feel it curtail power extremely gently. Helps prevent wheelies, which is kind of cool when you don't want to do wheelies. Clutch action. The clutch definitely has some weight to it. Definitely have to have some hand strength to manipulate the cable actuated clutch on this bike. 6-speed gearbox feels very precise. And of course, because it's a sport bike, first gear is very tall. Gotta remember, these bikes are made for competition. Yes, you can ride it on the street. but competition on the track is where this bike really belongs. The Öhlins Electronic Racing Suspension. Now, when this bike debuted in 2015, this bike was very aggressive, very stiff suspension. Yamaha has actually softened up the spring rate on the fork on this bike and on the standard R1. It also added a little bit more preload on the shock. And this motorcycle rides much better on the street. It's much more comfortable, where the predecessor was exceptionally stiff, exceptionally rigid. This bike goes over bumps much better. Now you got to remember, it's still a leader class super bike, so it's not going to be as comfortable as an MT-09 in terms of suppleness of the suspension, but it is much more livable for street riding. We did a big ride up at Palomar Mountain the other day on this bike, and I was actually really surprised by how this bike now, it has firm damping when you want it, when you're wailing in the corners, yet when you're riding in a straight line over bumpy pavement, the suspension does a much better job of absorbing the bumps. This particular YZF-R1M has Öhlins' new gas-charged fork. So what a gas-charged fork does is it mitigates cavitation and frothing of the oil inside the fork due to heat. So at a street pace, you're never going to ride the bike hard enough where you're going to even need that technology. But when you're at the track and it's hot out and you're wailing on it and you're riding the bike very hard, you're going to want that technology. Alright guys, we're just getting on the freeway now. We're in top gear. Very little engine vibration from this bike. You feel a little bit through the controls, through the handlebar and foot peg, but it's so mellow. Wind protection's decent. I like having this windscreen that blows the air over the rider. Seat's firm. Rear sets are high. You can ride this bike around town for a while, but if you had to ride this thing all day on the freeway, you would not be liking life. Not at all. We're doing our best, guys, to adhere to the speed limit, but again, we're on a leader class sport bike. These things like to go 80, 90 miles per hour. That's their happy spot. We're hitting some bumps here, and the suspension in its R1 setting, which is its more road-based setup, is doing a good job of soaking up the rough stuff. R1 represents a semi-active suspension setting, so the suspension automatically adjusts compression and rebound damping based on road conditions and rider input. So when I'm leaning more on the front brake, it's going to add a little bit of compression damping, probably slow down the rebound circuit too, and it does that all within milliseconds. For you guys riding in the track, T1 and TT are the track-based semi-active suspension settings. T2 is for track riding on the OE Bridgestone Battlax RS11 tires. T1 is for when you're riding on racing slicks. Of course, you can also choose to select fixed damping settings where the motorcycle will not adjust damping in real time. You can literally tune the damping settings to the way you like. Love how playful this bike is, yet even though it's playful, it has a lot of It has a quality feel, where some of the other liter and above size sport bikes from the Europeans feel a little rough around the edges. This bike does not feel rough around the edges. This bike feels like a very, very quality and well-built machine. Love the way this thing sounds. In fact, I love everything about this bike, and I like how Yamaha has made it more street friendly. Much more forgiving liter class superbike from Japan than before. $26,100 for this bike. That's a $3,000 price increase from its predecessor. But considering the high level of performance you get out of this bike, wouldn't say that that's totally ridiculous. Alright guys, the beloved wheelie test. Before we do the wheelie test, we're gonna turn off wheelie control, go in the settings here, YRC setting, lift. Lift is what Yamaha calls wheelie control. We're gonna try to turn that off if we can somehow. It's not letting us. Let's try it again. Alright, this is the mode we want. Off. We got it, guys. Like I said, sometimes this menu is great, but there's a little bit of fumbling on it. Alright, let's give her the beans, see what she's got. Yep, she wheelies good. Yep, she wheelies. The throttle response on this motorcycle, it's great, but it's still a little bit herky-jerky for doing wheelies. We forgot to talk about the throttle. This actually has a cableless throttle. Now, Yamaha was one of the first motorcycles to do ride-by-wire back with its 2007, 13 years ago, YZF-R1, YCCI. Now, for 2020, it's actually removed the cable housing altogether. So, kudos to Yamaha for continuing to elevate the technology game. These guys know what they're doing. Alright guys, here it is, Yamaha's 2020 YZF-R1M. God, she's a beautiful bike. It looks identical to the YZF-R1M. Look at the gills on the front of the fuel tank. Look at that front end. What a beautiful bike. That's a hand-formed alloy fuel tank. A lot of fuel tanks are made from steel. Not this one. This one's formed from aluminum. But enough talking about this thing. Let's see what you guys have to say about this bike. Alright guys, let's do some Q&A. Right to the top. Better than RSV4. We haven't ridden these bikes back to back. They're both awesome. To really know which bike's better, you're going to have to take both these bikes to the racing circuit, put some high grip tires with a rider who knows what he's doing, and that person will be able to tell you whether the bike is better than that. These bikes are very close. Is it the king of the Japanese liter bikes? Well, it was, but with the new Honda CBR 1000 RRR, I haven't ridden that bike, so I don't really know what its capability is. I would assume Honda probably has a bike that can compete with the YZF-R1 and R1M now. I'm sure it's probably not going to be significantly better, just knowing Honda, but it's going to be able to compete with this bike, with the Aprilia, with the Ducati. Again, you're going to have to take these bikes to a racing circuit, put on high grip tires with a rider who knows what he's doing to tell which bike is best. Is it a minor refresh or a substantial overhaul? This is a great question. The 2020 YZF-R1M is the 9th generation Yamaha YZF-R1. So the 2015 through the 2019 was generation 8. This is generation 9. Now, this isn't a substantial overhaul by any means, but Yamaha did a number of key modifications. The biggest improvement is just the suspension. The Öhlins suspension, even the base KYB suspension, it's a lot more high spec than before. Yamaha also did, which we didn't talk about, some engine durability refinements. The crankshaft journals have been enlarged, the rocker arms have been redesigned, and the oil pump rotor is a little bit more narrow. Now, Yamaha has done all of these improvements for enhanced durability to help this motorcycle last for the long haul. Speaking of lasting for the long haul, this motorcycle goes 26,000 miles between valve adjustments, 4,000 miles between engine oil changes. This motorcycle requires very, very little maintenance. And that's what you get when you buy a tuning fork brand product. These bikes offer exquisite craftsmanship, Honda-like levels of craftsmanship, in fact. So good job, Yamaha. Let's do one more question. One more question. Rolling burnouts. Yes, this motorcycle will absolutely do rolling burnouts. We didn't try doing it because we don't want to scratch up this $26,000 YZF-R1M, but yes, it will do these things. 0 to 60 in a straight line. We didn't measure that, but this bike should do 0 to 60 right around 2 seconds. A very quick motorcycle. In first gear, it'll go 60 miles per hour. You just have to make sure you get a good launch. Speaking of launch, this bike comes with launch control. The launch control electronics have been updated. It has a little bit higher RPM threshold when you launch it. Maybe we'll try that one day. Would I buy this $26,000 YZF-R1M? That's $8,700 more than the base model, $3,000 more than last year's. I would probably buy the standard model just so I could save $8,000. You know, the carbon fiber bodywork's neat. The Öhlins semi-active suspension's awesome too, but I'd rather have $8,700 in my pocket to spend on other stuff. But if I was looking for the ultimate riding experience, if I wanted a bike that I could ride on the street, ride on the track, show up to the circuit, not have to mess with any clickers, just ride on whatever tires I have and let the machine set itself up for the conditions, I'd absolutely buy this bike. I love this bike. All right, guys, that's a wrap from this MC Commute. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Hey guys, look what we have here, Yamaha's 2020 YZF-R1M. Because this motorcycle is such a high-performance street bike, we'd be doing you guys an injustice if we didn't at least ride it for a lap or two here at the racetrack. Now, this motorcycle is an OE configuration. This is how it comes from the dealer, equipped with the Battlax RS11 tires from Bridgestone. We've set up the electronics and the semi-active suspension to our liking. Now it's time to ride this thing and tell you guys what it's like to rip at the track. One of the coolest things about buying a high-performance sport bike like Yamaha's 2020 YZF-R1M is the ability to roll it off the showroom floor, ride it home, put it in the back of your pickup truck or van, and ride it at the racetrack. Yamaha's even got a slick track-specific dashboard which you can enable so you have all your lap times and stuff. This YZF-R1M also has Yamaha's GPS data acquisition. We're not going to play with this for this episode just because we're limited on time, but we are going to just show you what it is like to ride at the track. We've got all of our favorite settings set up the way we like it. Now it's time to spin a lap here in the desert. Here we go, guys. And whoa, that power comes on fast and hard. Yamaha really raised the bar when they had the cross-plane engine configuration debut on the 2009 YZF-R1, and that awesome character has just been refined. I mean, listen to the way that engine sounds. There's no other motorcycle made that sounds like Yamaha's cross-plane R1. Woo! And she gets it. God, this bike accelerates well. For a 450-pound motorcycle, this thing hustles around very nicely. The electronics are more well calibrated than they've ever been. It allows you to ride this bike with confidence. Almost feels like it's an extension of your body, just how well calibrated all the settings are. Really like the adjustable engine brake control. We started in the day in the least restrictive setting 1, but the motorcycle freewheels so much around the track, and the front brakes tended to get a little bit hot, that we moved it to level 2, which is 1 level less engine braking than Yamaha had with the original YZF-R1, and that seems to be the ticket. Love the electronic suspension. Of course, real fast riders will be able to set up the suspension a little bit better in fixed mode, but for folks who just want to show up the track and not mess with anything, they just want to ride and have fun, the semi-active suspension from Öhlins definitely gets the job done. Woo! And I like how this YZF-R1M comes with all the goodies. This thing's truly a track-ready motorcycle out of the box. Would I spend $26,100 on this YZF-R1M? If I'm looking for a motorcycle that is an adept at riding on the street and track and has a character all its own, and Yamaha's legendary build quality and craftsmanship, absolutely I would buy this bike. Yes, it's expensive, $8,700 more than the base R1, but if you're just looking for the best of the best, this YZF-R1M absolutely delivers. Alright guys, it's a quick 2 laps here at Chuckwalla. If you like this video, make sure you give us a comment. And thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.